We've just spent the last 4 weeks looking at transmedia narratives, their history, what they look like, and how you have to build them by deciding on what your goal is for the story, writing the story, and then making decisions about what media to tell your story with, and how interactive to make those different pieces of media. I think you've probably come to the conclusion that making a transmedia narrative is a big and detailed process, and it really is. But luckily, there's a blueprint for making things like transmedia narratives, and that is interaction design. Interaction design isn't specific to transmedia narratives, but we can use interaction design to make transmedia narratives. I'm actually an interaction designer myself, and I use interaction design when I make anything people are going to participate in. Some examples of things I've used the interaction design process to make are this class you're in right now, other classes in the digital media minor, this tablet app that you use while watching presidential debates, this mobile app for a museum exhibit, and even this big circus-themed booth for a trade show that I put together to convince high school students to come to a circus-themed summer camp at Ball State. Interaction design should be familiar to you from iCOM 101. It's a type of design you use to design spaces for people to communicate and interact. Those spaces can be digital, like websites, chat rooms, voicemail systems, and apps, or physical, like key hooks, or my trade show booth, or this lab where my graduate students work. We call what happens in those spaces experiences. So interaction design also concerns creating experiences that enhance and augment the way people work, communicate, and interact. We've talked a little bit about making transmedia narratives, and just like making transmedia narratives, when using interaction design, you have to think about who is going to use the digital or real thing that you make, how it will be used, where it will be used, and the kinds of things that will happen around it. For example, with this app I worked on for watching presidential debates, you can basically see every part of the app right here on one screen. Since people using this app also are watching TV, the app can't have too much to do on it or people will get overwhelmed. Interaction design is also the process you're going to be using in the capstone course for this minor, iCOM 495. So it's important that you learn it in this class to prepare you for that class. However, it's also important to know because you can use it to make literally anything that people use, whether it's digital or exists in the physical world or both. Using interaction design also helps you communicate your ideas to others, so you'll never find yourself saying things to your partners like, "I wish I could describe my idea better," or "You're just not getting my idea." Finally, it helps you to keep your goals in mind at every step of the way as you make decisions about what you're making. Goals about what people should take away from your story and what emotions they should experience. The interaction design process has 4 steps, but it's important to know that it really starts with a goal. You have to figure out what that goal is. The goal is always based around a human goal. So something like send an email isn't really a goal, that's a task. The real goal in this situation of sending an email is communicating with another person. The email is just the particular medium by which that communication is made. We also talk about goals in human-centered terms because interaction design is inherently human-centered. The process of interaction design begins with researching users to figure out what they need to achieve the goal. Then you create different ideas that meet those requirements. Next, you create a physical manifestation of those ideas, what we call a prototype. And the purpose of this is twofold. First, creating the prototype forces you to think through your idea as you build it. Maybe while you build it, you come up with a better idea or you notice a flaw in the design. Second, the prototype can be used in the last stage, evaluation. This is the stage at which you test your ideas to see which one solves the problem the best. After the evaluation stage, you compare how the prototype worked against the user requirements to see if you need to come up with a new alternative or tweak your design. The thing about this process is that it's iterative, which means you go through it multiple times. Once you test, in the evaluation stage, you go through the process again by changing, prototyping the change, and testing the change. Each time you test, you're getting more and more specific. The first time around the circle, you may have ideas that are wildly different. For example, if I want to get a classroom of preschool kids to not burst into tears when nap time starts, my alternative design ideas might be 1, to give them a snack, 2 to play the quiet mouse game, and 3 to just yell at them to be quiet and go to sleep. I can prototype these ideas by using each technique or alternative on successive days. I can evaluate by seeing what happens. Maybe I find that the snack works the best, so the next week I try different snacks every day, a sugary one, a sour one, a bland one, and so on. I test those. Each time I test, I'm testing something more specific. It might look something like this, where at first I just have an idea, and I'm really just testing that idea by sharing the idea with people and getting feedback. Then I take the feedback I get from the evaluation of my concept ideas, and I get more specific, this time making drawings or paper prototypes. Then I test those paper prototypes. I throw out what didn't work in the paper prototypes, I try some new ideas, and test an actual working digital design. I'll go around the circle with more and more specific ideas and more realistic prototypes until I have a final design that works the best that it can. Let's take a little bit of a closer look at the 4 stages, starting with user requirements. In this stage, I can do one of a few things. I can either conduct original research by observing or interviewing my audience, or I can look at what's already out there, similar to what I want to make. There's no reason to interview people about what they want in an online shoe store, for example, because there are a lot of online shoe stores I can just have users look at, and they can give me feedback on what's already out there. That's the approach we're going to take in this class. Looking at similar designs and figuring out what works on them and what doesn't by putting them in front of users and getting their feedback. In the second stage, alternatives, you'll come up with different ways to deliver on those requirements. For example, if your requirements suggest that you need to have a lot of video content, you can come up with several different alternatives, like maybe you have a few long videos, or maybe you have a lot of short videos, or videos that are in a playlist, or videos that are on different pages of the website, so on and so forth. There's lots of different ways to deliver those videos. Next, you'll prototype those different ways or alternatives by making some of those alternatives real, and then you'll show them to people to see which one works. One thing you had to keep in mind when you were testing those different prototypes is that there's much more to the success of a design than whether people liked it or not. Yes, liking it can be important, but most of all, you want your design to be usable. What do I mean by usable? A design is usable when people can accomplish their goals in the easiest way possible. There are 6 usability goals, aspects you want to be at their highest level in your design. They are effectiveness, efficiency, safety, utility, learnability, and memorability. This is all from your reading. You can actually test each of these elements to see which you have and which you don't. And we'll look at more at how to do that later in this class when you're getting ready to test your transmedia narrative. When you're measuring the success of your design, or in this class, story, you also want to gauge the emotional experience. There are some suggested emotions you can choose to focus on, like if you want your story to be more enjoyable or more challenging, more fun, or more provocative. A list of possibilities is provided in your reading this week. You'll actually pick these user experience goals before you start writing and designing your story, but you'll want to make sure you ask your users about them during your testing to see if you are successful. If you wanted to make a fun story, you need to find out from your users if they had fun. That's everything I wanted to cover this week. Next week, you'll decide on the goals for your narrative, and then you'll start designing it.